So we're inside the last 21 minutes of the SportsMax Zone for this Thursday. In true ESPN fashion, the USA Network Sports company created more controversy in the sporting world by releasing a list of the greatest 100 athletes since the year 2000. The list comprises retired and active stars across various sporting disciplines, ranging from tennis to cricket. The most decorated Olympic swimmer, Michael Phelps, takes the #1 spot, with tennis legends Serena Williams and Lionel Messi considered among football's all-time greats, rounding out the top 3. Only 2 Caribbean athletes on the list, both sprinters. 8-time Olympic champion Usain Bolt, the fastest man in history, appears 9th on the list, with the most successful women's 100-meter sprinter, 3-time Olympic gold medalist and 5-time world champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, coming in at 77th. The lone cricketer on the list is India's Virat Kohli, and he's ranked 97th. The athletes were placed, ESPN says, based on their achievements and impact on their sport. And Mariah Ramharak, a huge cricket fan, I'm sure would be disappointed that only one cricketer appears on this top 100.
Well, yeah, for sure. It kind of shows a disconnect with what's happening in the rest of the world. That's the first thing I'll start by saying. And then of all the cricketers, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big Virat Kohli fan, really appreciate what he's done for this sport. And I love watching him, like, exciting cricketer. But then the only one on your entire list is Virat Kohli. So what about the other players that are even ranked like #1? Let's just say the #1 ODI player or the #1 T20 player. T20 is an exciting format around the Caribbean and around the rest of the world, to the point, Lance, that the World Cup was actually co-hosted again in the USA. So for me, like, this kind of speaks volumes to the way cricket is seen by those ranking this. So that's one thing. There are a lot of WNBA players on this list. That brings to mind a lot of questions, and it adds a lot of confusion in my brain. And I thought it was just me. Don't get me wrong again. Love the women's NBA. I have a lot of time for that sport. We always report the results and stuff. But if you're ranking a top 100, like I felt as if there were names that were in there that should not have been there. And to the point, Lance, after I had all these initial thoughts, getting ready for the show, need to hear what other people are saying about it, Googled it, and then an article came up by the Edmonton Journal saying that, they said that ESPN got it dead wrong, and they were bringing up the same points that, a lot of WNBA players that were included, they felt like they should not be there. So that's just 2 points to say that I also think they got it dead wrong.
Yeah, well, I don't get excited about stories like these, Mariah, because ESPN is an American network, and ESPN is very US-oriented in how they approach everything, because that's predominantly their market, even though, to their credit, they have stretched their wings globally, because they own Cricinfo, ESPN Cricinfo. So they have a track record, to be honest, of recognizing that there are other major sporting platforms in the world, and they try to be a part of it. But essentially, it is an American-oriented network, and of the top 20 on their top 100 athletes list since 2000, 8 of them are NBA and NFL players, and 13 of the top 20 are Americans. So I'm just saying that it's their list, and they talk about impact on the sport and so on. And because the U.S. sporting landscape is so well marketed and so on, I can understand that Tom Brady and the impact he has on the sport being bigger than, let's say, a Roger Federer and a Usain Bolt in their listing. But in real terms, and if you look at things globally, there is a huge bias, in my opinion, to the American sporting setup and the American performers and the American major sports, as in the NBA and the NFL, because I cannot understand how Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce would appear 77th.
Virat is 97.
And Virat.
It's like he just got a consolation insert.
Yeah. And I would think that Elaine Thompson-Herah is missing from this top 100 list. She was the Laureate Sportswoman of the Year in 2022, and that means she was the best performing sports star on the women's side in the world in all sport. So I'm not sure these Americans have a top 100 since 2000, and Elaine Thompson-Herah isn't on it, and Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce is 77th, and Usain Bolt is 9. Usain Bolt can't be 9.
No, not at all. That's why I was thinking we can just rename the actual name of it. So it can be ESPN Greatest US Athletes, with a few exceptions, since 2000.
Well, that might be a reasonable approach because
don't tell me.
I am saying that Usain Bolt is in the conversation when a serious discussion is had about sport and all-time greats. Usain Bolt is in the conversation for being the greatest sports star of all time. He's in the conversation. I'm not saying he's number 1 or number 2 or number 3. He's in the conversation. So I'm not sure how you can have a list only from 2000 to now. This spans 24 years, and Usain Bolt is number 9. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, not even in the top 3. Even Lionel Messi. Remember, the problem with him was that he didn't win a World Cup. He did that from 2000 to now.
Yes.
I'm talking about the span. What number is he on this
3.
list?
He's ranked 3, Lionel Messi.
Okay, well, maybe that's a fair ranking when you think about it. But still, like, to me, you will always have these discussions. We would be Caribbean-centered because that's where we're from, and we cover that so closely.
Yeah.
So we're going to have, like, bigger issues, Lance, with how our Caribbean people were ranked.
Yeah, to be fair, Michael Phelps, because of his Olympic medal haul, which is unprecedented, they can argue that Michael Phelps is number 1. But even when we talk about the most successful Olympic athlete in history, usually that discussion has Usain Bolt in it. And Bolt and Phelps become the prominent names in that discussion, Bolt and Phelps. So I'm not sure how Phelps becomes number 1 and Bolt is number 9 on their list.
Yeah.
Part of the issue is that as far as ESPN is concerned, as far as the USA is concerned, track and field isn't a major sport. They would consider the NBA and NFL and of course the Olympic performances as more major than track and field itself by a sport. So track and field stars in the USA are, because they've had outstanding stars. I'm not sure where Carl Lewis falls on that list. Maybe our producer can quickly pull that up, because I think he would be in the top 100, Carl Lewis.
Yeah.
But it just shows that even though Carl Lewis is such a giant in US track and field history, he doesn't get a top flight position in their own, well, this is since
top
2000.
100,
No,
yeah.
This is since 2000, yes, so forget Carl Lewis, because he would have retired long before that. But they have had stars in that period, like Justin Gatlin, who won Olympic gold and so on. So it's partly a disregard for track and field as a sport, even though track and field is more global than the NFL, because the NFL isn't global.
Yeah, so
it's a national championship.
So disregard for track and field. I don't like what they did with cricket. And just to add on that, the producer was saying, what about Chris Gayle? 2000 to now.
Well, the fact is, if Virat Kohli only appears at number 97 and his stats are far more impressive than Chris Gayle's stats are, then if I use that as the measuring stick, then Chris Gayle doesn't make the top 100. But part of the reason why Kohli is so low and the reason why he's the only cricketer on that list is because the ESPN doesn't regard cricket very highly.
So
certainly
no cricket,
in their approach
no track
to this
and
list.
field.
Well, they have some track and field in there, but
You
not
couldn't
many.
help but put Bolt in. Like, if you left Bolt out, then that would have been an X on that list. I was saying, if Bolt wasn't as good as he is, you'd have gotten a big X on that list. They would have just left him out, and I'm not okay with that. Yeah. Well, Lance, we had a good fun with that discussion. These discussions will always be very controversial. We said our piece.
Yes.
It's now time for your toss for Eyes on Paris. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Keeping you up to date on all things Olympics, this is Eyes on Paris. Fast food giants KFC has signed one of Jamaica's most dynamic and exciting young athletes, triple jump sensation Jaden Hibbert, as a brand ambassador. The partnership with the world under-20 record holder begins on the eve of the 2024 Paris Olympics, where Hibbert is competing for the first time in his career. Former Haitian swimmer Naomi Grand-Pierre, who made history as the first female swimmer to represent the country at the Olympics, will coach Haiti's two-member swimming team at the upcoming Games in Paris. Grand-Pierre is set to lead her younger brother Alex, along with 14-year-old Maya Chouliot, who will become the youngest swimmer ever to represent the Francophone country at the Olympics. Three-time Olympic 100-meter champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce has opted out of the European circuit after withdrawing from the World Athletics Continental Tour Silver meeting in Lucerne, Switzerland on Tuesday. The Mommy Rocket felt some discomfort during her warm-up, forcing her to pull out of what would be her final race before the Olympic Games. The French Union of Performing Artists announced this week its intention to call a strike in anticipation of the opening ceremony on 26th of July, as well as for rehearsals associated with the Paralympics. The group of actors, dancers, and acrobats hired for the spectacle are planning to protest low wages and the labor inequalities by the organization, which, according to the union, has been repeatedly ignoring their concerns despite alerting Panam 24, the executive producer of the ceremonies, about contractual practices that do not comply with the collective agreement. This has been Eyes on Paris. Until next time, au revoir.